Thanks so much, Joe, and thanks everybody for having me. This sounds like a fantastic event, and you guys are going to cover a lot of great information and take some deep dives on some specific topics. So what I hope I can do today is give you kind of a broad overview of what we've learned in our research about the changing nature of jobs in America. As Joe mentioned, I'm with the Pew Research Center in Washington, D.C. And if any of you aren't familiar with us, we're a nonprofit, non-advocacy fact tank. We study a whole range of different issues, everything from politics to news and information, science and technology, global attitudes. And the area that I work on is called social and demographic trends. So I try to look at important changes that are taking place in the country and understanding what they mean for people and what they mean for the world, and also to provide decision makers and stakeholders with important fact-based information so they can make good decisions going forward. So one of the things that I do at the Pew Research Center is look at how broad economic forces are affecting people in their everyday lives. And for many people, their job is the most profound connection that they have to the economy. So we've done some interesting work over the years looking at job satisfaction, looking at trends in earnings and wages, looking at shifting occupations and skills. And this study that we did last year called The State of American Jobs was really sort of an effort to pull all of that information together and develop a big comprehensive picture of what's happening. Get to my state. Now, I know PowerPoints can be really boring and not great, but in this case there's just so much data and so many great numbers that it's important, I think, to have it up there in case you want to reference it, and also because I don't have all of those numbers stored in my head. So we know that jobs and opportunity are changing in the digital age, and we also know that that it's a challenge for workers to adapt to the changes. So in this study, we wanted to see how the labor force is actually changing, and then to look at how Americans are reacting to those changes and adjusting their own plans and their approach to work. We want to see how people are qualifying for jobs, how they're building economic security, and ultimately how they're building jobs and careers that can sustain them in their life. And we went about this study in two ways. We did sort of a macro level look at the labor force, changes in skills and preparation and occupations, and then we did a big survey of about 5,000 Americans to see how these changes are impacting them and how they were reacting. And what we found, bottom line, is that, as you all know very well, the ground has really shifted beneath American workers. As we've moved to a knowledge-based economy, employment has been growing much faster in jobs that require high levels of preparation. By preparation, I mean education and training. So in the last 25 years, jobs that require high levels of preparation have grown about 70%. But you can see jobs that require lower levels of preparation have grown at less than half of that rate. So the public is very well aware of these changes, and I've studied public opinion for a long time. Oftentimes public opinion can be a lagging indicator, so trends can be happening, things can be churning out there, and the public isn't always aware. When it comes to jobs, the public is very aware. And in this one survey question, we found that 54% of working age adults said that they thought it was going to be essential for them to continue to develop skills and get additional training throughout their careers. So they don't feel that they're settled. They know that it's a race and they've got to keep moving to keep up. Only another 33% said it would be important but not essential, and only 12% of workers said it's not going to be important for me to keep, upping my game throughout my career. So we also found that employment has been growing much more quickly in jobs that require, occupations that require social and analytical skills, and not growing really at all in jobs that rely on manual and physical skills. So this probably doesn't come as a big surprise to anyone. We all know that the manufacturing sector has contracted and that we're in a knowledge-based economy now. But this was the first time that we've really put numbers to this, and you can see that the growth in jobs that require social and analytical skills has really been quite impressive. And of course there are jobs that require both of those types of skills, and some examples of those might be jobs in management or jobs in education, and those types of jobs are growing the fastest. Again, the jobs that don't rely on those types of skills at all are really not growing, and in certain sectors actually shrinking. So along with job growth, we also see wage growth. So jobs that require high analytical and social skills, wages are higher, and they're also growing more rapidly. So the gap between earnings in those types of jobs and the manual and physical jobs has grown significantly over the decades. And as a result, the earning gap that, and growing economic inequality that we hear so much about, this is really at the root of that. Now, the shifting demand in skills and the way that that's playing out in occupations is really working to the benefit of women and of college graduates. So you can see here that women and college graduates are overrepresented in these occupations that require higher social and analytical skills. And there's some important implications to this. So I've done a lot of research on the gender wage gap and trying to understand why it's closing, but why it persists. And if you look at these trends here with women being overrepresented in these certain types of occupations, it suggests that moving forward that may contribute to a further closing of the gender wage gap. And on the right side, the fact that workers with bachelor's degrees are overrepresented in these faster growing occupations suggests again that we're going to see growing income inequality in the future. So this is sort of a nice summary slide of where jobs have actually been growing, and what's driving the shifting need for skills has been the shifts that we've seen in industries. So now we're shifting from occupations to industries. Here you can see over the last 25 years, jobs in the educational services and in healthcare and social assistance sectors have doubled. And jobs in professional and business services and leisure and hospitality have also grown rapidly. At the other end of the scale, you see that jobs in manufacturing have dropped by 1/3. So here you can see where the real opportunities lie for workers today, and that's true at different levels of skill and preparation. So that sort of gives you a feel for how the landscape is shifting underneath workers and what the job situation looks like. So how are workers reacting to this? In this question we asked people, what skills do you think would be important for a worker to be successful in today's economy? And people really focused in on a few key areas. They feel like it's important for people to have a detailed understanding of computers and technology. If you look down a little bit, they don't feel like everyone needs to be a programmer or a coder, but they do recognize that you have to be adept at using technology. They also, interestingly, think that it's important for people to have the ability to work with others from different backgrounds. And another thing I study a lot is the changing demography and racial and ethnic makeup of the country. The country's changed tremendously and is continuing to, mainly because of immigration. And workers recognize that they need to be conversant and able to work with people of all different backgrounds. So that's interesting too. And people also feel like training in writing and communications is still extremely important. So soft skills still really matter, and the public recognizes that. And also people again say that they're going to need access, that workers are going to need access to continual skills and updating. And you can see at the bottom some of the things that people don't think are quite as important going forward. So I mentioned earlier that a very high share of workers feel like it's going to be essential or important for them to keep acquiring skills as they go out throughout their career. And what was one of the interesting findings, again, where you see this growing divide between the highly educated and the less educated, it's workers with a bachelor's degree who feel this the most acutely. So 63% of bachelor's degree graduates say that it's going to be essential for them to keep improving their skills and gaining new knowledge throughout their career. 45% of folks with a high school degree or less say the same. Now, many people are already getting this training, as I'm sure many of you know. So in our survey, we found that 45% of workers said that in the last 12 months they had taken a course or gotten training to improve their skills or maintain or improve their skills. And another 30% said that they had taken special training to get a license or certification. We asked people why they had done these things, and most say that their employer required it, but many also said they did it to increase their earning potential, to get a better job, or to get a promotion in their existing organization. So here you can see how some of this is playing out in real time. Now, we also asked workers, who do they think is responsible for making sure that people get the skills that they need? And Americans have a pretty clear idea about this. First and foremost, they say it's on the individual themselves. 72% said individuals themselves have a lot of responsibility for making sure that they get these skills. The public does not look to government to play this role, and I thought that was interesting. They also see a really large role for the K through 12 educational system. I know that's something you're going to be talking about in the next session. 60% said that public K through 12 education schools have a lot of responsibility for preparing workers for the future. So you can see that the public feels like the basic building blocks, the fundamentals, are very important in terms of training workers. It's not just what they get in college or in other specialized training. Those basic fundamentals are very important. So people put even less emphasis on colleges and universities than they do on those early years, and that I thought was very interesting. And about half said it's important for employers to provide training for their employees. And you can see there at the bottom, state and federal government, again, are not looked at as the answer to this problem by the public. Only 40% say state governments have a lot of responsibility for training workers, and 35% look at the federal government for that. And I did a presentation like this for a bunch of members of Congress earlier in the year, and they were kind of surprised by that, because they feel like they have a lot of ideas and energy, and they're still putting a lot of money into job training programs, but this isn't where the public is really looking for that kind of assistance. So when it comes to college, the public has a really complicated set of attitudes about the role that college plays in preparing workers. The Americans are fairly skeptical that college is going to do a good job of preparing workers for a well-paying job in today's economy. Only 16% said that a 4-year degree prepares workers very well for a high-paying job. Another 51% said somewhat well. So, you know, they see a positive impact, but they don't see that as being sort of the linchpin of the future. And they have less positive views about the extent to which a 2-year college degree will prepare a worker for a well-paying job in today's economy. They put a little more stock in professional and technical certificates. I'm not sure whether people think those need to come after college or in lieu of college. We didn't get into that particular detail. But when you ask people about their own college experience, college graduates, they say it was very valuable. It helped them develop intellectually, it opened doors to job opportunities, and many also say it gave them skills that they needed to be successful in their jobs. And in some of the work we've done on the rising cost of going to college and looking at sort of the cost-benefit analysis that the public makes, most people, again, question whether everybody should be paying this much for college. Is it really worth it? But when you ask them, are they glad they did it, they're glad, and they wouldn't have it any other way. So people have sort of a mixed set of views about college, and I assume that's something that you all are going to be talking about later on as well. Now, looking sort of more broadly, really big picture about how American workers feel these sort of forces beyond their control are impacting their own well-being and their opportunities in the workplace. The public really looks at globalization as a very negative force for the US workforce, especially sort of when we're sending out jobs and we're bringing in other products and not selling our own products. So about 8 in 10 Americans think that increased outsourcing of jobs is hurting American workers, and a similar share say that more foreign-made products being sold in the US is harmful. And you can see, again, when I did that talk for the members of Congress, it was right after the election, and this was very much a part of the what a lot of people were thinking when they went into the voting booths about trade and globalization and feeling like that was a real threat. So on balance, when it comes to the increased use of contract or temporary employees and also the decline of union membership, the public see those as negative trends overall for workers. They have mixed views of the role of automation and how that's impacting people today, and I know that's another thing that you're talking about at this conference. And also immigration. There's a mixed set of views there, and that's an area we had asked this same set of questions 10 years ago. The immigration item was the one that moved the most. So in 2006, people had a very negative view of how a rising number of immigrants was impacting American workers, and things really shifted, and all of the shifting attitudes came among Democrats. That's just sort of a side note, but I thought it was interesting. And the things that people see as positive factors are US products being sold abroad, and also the increased and improved technology that people have in the office that allows us to be in touch all the time and get our work done so efficiently. We had another set of items that I didn't put a slide up for, but that sort of really got at the future of work and what do people see going forward in terms of how work is going to impact the quality of their lives. And it wasn't a super optimistic picture. People see, looking forward, lower wages for workers, fewer benefits for workers, which is a trend that we know is already taking place. And they also see less loyalty between workers and employees. And that was something we asked, do you think it'll be better, about the same, or worse? And large majorities said that things will probably be worse in all of those areas. I just wanted to include a couple of data points, too, about the research that we've done on the gig economy. This is done by my colleagues in the Internet Research Group. They did a survey last summer to try to capture the extent to which the gig economy is impacting the labor force. And so they found that almost 1 in 10 American adults earned money from an online job platform in the last year. So that was a new data point. There's a lot more research that needs to be done on this topic, but it gives us sort of a baseline. And people are doing online tasks, surveys, and data entry. That's about 5% of adults say they've made money doing that. About 2% say they've made money on working in ride-hailing services, and there's other various things that people are doing in the gig economy to earn money. And then we also asked them whether the income that they're generating from those jobs is essential, or whether it's just sort of nice to have, a nice addition. And 56% said that income is really essential to them. So it'll be interesting to track going forward how many more people get engaged in that kind of work and what sort of an impact it has. And then just to drill down real quickly on the demographics of that, if you look at young adults, 18 to 29, 16% of them said that in the last 12 months they had made money engaged in one of these online platforms. And we found that blacks and Hispanics were more likely than whites to be doing this, and also that folks with lower household incomes were more likely to be engaged with the gig economy. And that's it.